Drew is an 18-year member of Boston University's athletic senior staff. He took the role of Director of Athletics in 2014, and since then has seen over half of BU's 24 varsity programs qualify for NCAA championship competition. During Drew's tenure as athletic director, BU has captured 25 Patriot League titles, 4 Hockey East titles, and 5 Patriot League women's presidents. 11 programs have qualified for their respective NCAA tournaments, highlighted by the men's ice hockey team earning 4 straight NCAA appearances for the first time in 2 decades, and 3 others have sent individuals to NCAA championships. Originally from Arlington, Mass., Drew has been involved in college athletics for more than 30 years as a student athlete, coach, and administrator. He received a bachelor's degree in government in 1991 from Wesleyan University, where he started 4 years at wide receiver for the varsity football team, was captain his senior year, and was named to their 1990s All-Decade team. Drew earned his master's degree in education administration from the University. He earned his master's degree in education administration from the University of Albany and coached football for 3 years at Rensselaer Polytech Institute and 2 years at Union College. Please welcome Drew to our forum. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. I appreciate the hospitality and appreciate the welcome, and thank you for breakfast. So you will see that this is the first time I've ever operated a PowerPoint in my life. So I was taught how to do it yesterday. I was trying to get through my whole career without doing it, but I'm going to see. It looks like it's pretty easy, knock on wood. Had a welcome at the coffee station. One of the members was talking to somebody else, and he said that his wife didn't want to come. She didn't have interest in the speaker today, and then they introduced me as the speaker. And I told him that I'm not offended because I don't think I could get my own family to come and hear me speak. So I couple that, though, with the fact that Howie Newell had been trying to get me to speak for a while. And Howie is a distinguished alum from Boston University, and I see some other alums in the crowd. Howie was a rower for us way back when. I won't give you his class year, but Howie tried to get me to come, and as soon as I committed, he was told he had to go to Florida. So I'm not offended by that either. Somebody asked me why I agreed to speak, and I said because I think we have a community obligation to be involved with our community and to interact. And I tell our coaches this all the time, and I tell our kids this all the time, our student athletes, that you can't just live within the walls of BU. You have to get out there, and it's not just talking about the brand of Boston University, but you need to care about your community, and you need to think about making it better. And that's why I'm here on a Sunday morning sharing time with you, because I do believe in the community aspect. You heard in the bio that I am from Arlington, Mass. I lived there growing up, went to Arlington High School, and my mother moved way far away from Arlington when I was about 23, 24 years old. She moved to Ashland, and I had no idea where it was, and she had to tell me it was right near Framingham. I said, okay, now I know where it is. So I'm in somewhat familiar territory. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of Boston University and the landscape of college athletics right now, knowing that there are varying levels of interest here and varying levels of knowledge at the same time. So I'll try to keep it right in the middle. But what we're dealing with across the country is a changing landscape within the NCAA. College sports are changing. Higher ed is changing. I mean, there's an article in the Globe today about how the birth rate's going to really impact higher ed in the near future. But higher ed's changing, college is changing, college athletics is definitely changing. But Boston University has changed as well over the past couple of years, certainly over the past 20 years. But Boston University is a higher, or is a top tier research university. But if you went there and graduated in 1970, it's changed. If you went there and graduated in 2000, it's changed. When I got there in 2005, I believe the admissions rate was close to 70%. And I mean, that's a pretty obvious percentage, but to put that in perspective, 100 people apply and 70 get in. And right now we're down in the 11, 12, 13% in the real elite area. So I gave a talk years ago when we were talking about that changing admissions rate, and I had a group of alums, and I said in some strange way that if you applied to school today, you probably wouldn't get in, which probably is not the right thing to say to a group of alums. But mathematically, somewhat correct. And we're proud of our really of our standing with regard to the academic side. We're a Division I school, a Division I athletic program. That means we compete at the top level of the NCAA. And we have 350 odd schools that do that. Obviously, we all have different budgets and different philosophies and different interests. We do offer scholarships, although not all of our student athletes are on scholarship. And we are a member of the Patriot League, Hockey East, and the IRA. So we're a member of 3 different conferences. We have 24 sports and roughly 600 athletes, but we occupy 3 different conferences. And we transitioned from the America East Conference about 10, 11 years ago into the Patriot League. And the Patriot League is made up of 10 schools. And you may have heard a lot of these schools: American, Army, Navy, Bucknell, Lehigh, Lafayette, Colgate, Holy Cross, Loyola. It's a great conference. It's a great league. It's made up of schools that believe you should compete and excel both academically and athletically, not one sacrificing the other, but to pursue both and pursue both with excellence. But that's where we sit nationally. We sit within the Patriot League. There's 30 conferences, I believe, nationwide. You've heard a lot of them. Big Ten, Big East, ACC. We're in the Patriot League. We're also in Hockey East, and Hockey East is a it's kind of a hodgepodge because there are 7 different conferences that make up this hockey conferences, and you know these schools. You hear about Hockey East all the time. Hockey East is certainly the best conference in the country competitively, and we'll be advancing 2 schools to the Frozen Four in Minnesota over the next week. One is Boston University, and one is another school that is up the street close to Boston University. We have, as I mentioned, 600 student athletes, and of the schools and colleges at BU, there are our students represent, or our students are in 13 of those schools. 75 majors are represented. We do not tell our students what majors what disciplines they should pursue, what academic side they should look at. We tell them you follow your path, and we even in the recruiting path. And a lot of schools do. They tell kids you can't major in a certain thing because it conflicts time-wise with practice. You're going to have to spend too much time on that academic pursuit. We're well represented across our schools and colleges. I'm really proud of that. So that's something that is kind of a hallmark of BU. And then as we talk about change, you see where we're represented from the United States, 37 states. I think that's a little lower than we have been at times. I think we've been in the 40s at times, and we have 506 of our 600 student athletes represented by 37 states. And as we're an international university, we're also an international department, that we're 91 students from 29 different countries. This is also a little bit lower than it has been. There was an article years ago. Dan Shaughnessy had written something about the bean pot and how the bean pot, and I'll get this wrong, but how the bean pot had 120 kids on the rosters, or 105 kids on the rosters, and 103 of them were from Massachusetts. And that has changed a great deal because the sport of hockey has changed, and again, the national landscape has changed, and the international landscape has changed. Right now, our men's ice hockey team is represented by 8 states, or represents 8 states, and represents two countries. High school hockey has changed, and again, it's certainly dictated how we recruit and comprise our roster. I started with the academics. I think that's real important, and talked about combining both. But at the same time, we're trying to win games, And I'm proud of how we've done competitively. This is based on last year, where we had 15 of 24 of our teams finishing first or second in the regular season or the conference tournament. That's pretty good. We as was mentioned in the introductory remarks, we won the women's President's Cup last year for overall excellence on the women's side, which is pretty good. Which is pretty good, because you look at these schools that we're competing against, and again, everyone else is trying to win. You see some of the highlights, some of the joy that we derive from winning. These are just some snapshots of some of our teams right after they've won. I mentioned last year, and I hate to talk about last year because it's really far away right now, as we're almost done with this year. We haven't wrapped up this year. I'll get to that in a bit. We're having a pretty good year this year, but last year overall, I thought we had a decent year. Patriot League honors one person per sport with a Scholar Athlete Award, and what that denotes is that you are the top scholar athlete in the sport. And we had 5 last year of all the sports. So 5 kids were recognized as the best scholar athlete. And again, go back to who I mentioned our competition is. Lehigh, Bucknell, Army, Navy. You're talking about really smart kids and really good athletes. So for us to have 5, which is the most we've ever had in one year, was really noteworthy. We also had the scholar athlete in the Patriot League. They choose one, the best of the best, and Caitlin Coker, who's now a 5th-year student for us, softball player. She's from Pennsylvania, and Cokes is she's majoring in something that I can't even pronounce. She's just one of those kids that if she were your daughter, you'd be really proud of her, and I'm proud that she represents our department. But she was named as the Scholar Athlete of the Year. It's only the 2nd time in Patriot League history that we've had that recognition. We believe, as I said at the beginning, in being involved with the community. And our student athletes take it upon themselves to be involved in the community, that whether it's a reading program at a local school, whether it's a food drive, whether it's just interacting with some other not-for-profit organization. And the best part about it is we don't have to force this on them. They take it upon themselves, and I tell people we don't want to be involved in the community just to check a box, and I don't think we are. I think that there's some real relationships that are formed, and some real development, and it's good for the community. It's good for those that we're impacting. It's also good for our kids to be involved in such pursuits. I'm going to play a video, and I'm going to hope that it plays. We're involved with Team Impact, and Team Impact, you may have heard of them. They're now a nationwide organization. They're just absolutely wonderful, and they have students who are fighting an affliction. It could be varying levels, but we really become involved with Team Impact by signing the kid to be a member of our team, embracing their family, and these families often attend practices. They attend a lot of the games, but they're part of the community. Logan Gatto's a member of our ice hockey team. Logan has a locker in our locker room. That's how much that they're involved. So we've had, I think we have 6 or 7 of these such affiliations. It's really just heartwarming.
At 6, a boy losing his ability to play his favorite game has a whole new cheering section while he's on the field. This 9-year-old loves soccer, but he is going blind.
WBZ's Tiffany Chan shows us how the BU soccer team is rallying around him in tonight's Team Impact.
9-year-old Pierce Sabin loves the game of soccer.
I just like getting goals. It gives you a good moment.
The adrenaline of going after the ball, dodging the opponents, and scoring a goal. But the very sport could make the Quincy boy's vision worse.
He has a condition called X-linked juvenile retinoschisis.
In other words, Pierce is slowly going blind. He's already lost vision in his right eye.
He does have the chance, if there's any impact to his head, that it could cause a retinal detachment.
The Sabin family made the tough decision to hang up his cleats at the end of this season to save what's left of Pierce's eyesight.
Well, it's going to be hard because that's like my only chance to get the goal.
That's why his bond with Boston University men's soccer through the nonprofit Team Impact is so special. Their head coach, Kevin Nyland.
Yeah, I always say we learn more from Pierce than he probably does from us. He brings a smile every day.
Coach Nyland says Pierce isn't just a part of the team, he's become family. He brought the 9-year-old to Fenway Park to see the Green Monster up close with his own kids.
It's amazing, honestly, because we also meet up with them, like, after I have an eye appointment, we always will meet after them then, and they go to my soccer games.
The team is even learning Braille alongside Pierce, who's cherishing every moment of the sport before he can no longer play.
He doesn't have to lose his love for soccer and playing the game because he's with BU men's team.
Pierce plans to coach his teammates from the sidelines and to celebrate every BU goal, just like soccer star Neymar. From Boston, I'm Tiffany Chan, WBZ News.
Okay, someone who's that emotionally strong is also going to be a great coach.
Absolutely. What a sweet connection, too, that they're learning Braille alongside him. And it's a great organization and good for those young men at BU.
Apologize for any technical ineptitude that I'm displaying, but you got the gist right there. And we'll send that along as a link. It's really heartwarming to you can advance. There we go. I got it. How about that? You had no faith in me, did you? No, it's really heartwarming to see that connection, and that story was wonderful. If you couldn't hear it, you did. They did denote that the team was learning Braille, and the team interacts with Pierce and the family, and it's a great connection. And again, it's symbolic, I think, of our involvement in the community. So I'm really proud of that. I mentioned before that we are experiencing the biggest upheaval in NCAA history, really. And there are so many different things that are, it's a different landscape, a different world right now that we're living in. And most of these have happened over the last couple of years. So I've got a couple of these up there. I don't know if you can see, but one is name, image, and likeness, which you've probably heard of in the news. The other is the transfer portal. And then we have student-athlete employment. And then we have the fourth topic, the light-hearted sports wagering. So this is what we're dealing with right now on college campuses. And you've probably heard these because they're news reports. And I happen to think when college athletics is in the news, it's either really good or really bad. And people are hearing these stories and they're saying, how are you dealing with these? I heard about this on the national news. The reality is we're dealing with all of these different forces, if you will. So name, image, likeness, I'll start with that very quickly, and I'll sum it up very quickly. Is previously, in the time that we all grew up and started watching college sports, athletes could not be compensated. It's that simple. It was a violation of their amateurism. And right now, some transactions are allowed to occur that athletes can be compensated. So a pizza company wants to come to me, and I'm a soccer player, and they say, we want you to endorse our product, and whether I give you free pizza or whether I give you $3,000, whatever it is, that can occur. That's now legal. We're seeing Caitlin Clark. If you're watching her, she's the most visible basketball player in America, men or women, and she's also visible on commercials, and she's doing quite well financially. And the point is, she probably should be as the most visible athlete in the sport of basketball. And at the same time, that couldn't happen a couple years ago. Couldn't happen because it was not legal. It would have just violated the definition of amateurism. And frankly, the definition of amateurism is clearly changing. But I would say that some people aren't happy about this. And I think what we're dealing with in the NCAA is you're dealing with a level of unhappiness about everything, because the polar opinions that are taking place, they're just evident, and they're everywhere. What do I mean by that? There's some people who still feel she's a college athlete, she shouldn't be paid anything, and I respect that opinion. And then there's some people saying it's a free market and she should be paid, and that's what you're seeing on the other side. And then within some circle, some people say, yeah, but there's probably a limit to what people should be paid. I don't know what that limit is, but we all have these limits of what we think we can pallet, whether we're buying a house or whether we're paying somebody. There's a limit. We all probably have that intuitive limit of this is what is appropriate. but our athletes can be paid. We don't have a lot at BU that are benefiting from this. You've probably also heard about something called a collective, and a collective is really a group putting something together. Just think about a group pooling money to benefit a sport, and this has been used as a recruiting enticement. This has been used as a kind of an alumni endeavor, an alumni initiative to strengthen your team, ostensibly, because you're providing collective support financially for a group of student athletes. That's, if you do hear that term, that's what it means. And I know that these are kind of lightning rod propositions right now because it's a different NCAA than it was, never mind 20 years ago, 2 years ago. Related to that, there's something called the transfer portal. And the transfer portal summed it up. I'll sum it up quickly is I want to transfer. I enter my name. School X now knows I want to transfer. They contact me. I can transfer. And without getting into it, the previous transfer rules were so cumbersome that they were really limiting, that essentially students couldn't go freely to another school. Couldn't go freely to another school if they were unhappy. There were parameters and just tethers that kept them at the school. And I think that in the case of the transfer portal, I've always said, and this is my own feeling, coaches can go where they want, and they're free most of the time to go where they want contractually. There may be some stipulations and parameters, but the coach can go. Frankly, the student should have that free will as well and should be able to exercise free will, and I'm okay with that. What you're seeing right now is, because it's such an open market, is people are being recruited off of rosters. And in some cases, and I don't know this to be true, but these are the allegations, they're taking those collectives that are put in place, and they're taking the NIL opportunities, and they're using those as enticements to recruit somebody off a roster. So NIL by itself, I'm not going to say it's pure, I'm going to say it's open market. And then transfer portal by itself, you have the chance to go where you want to go. When they're combined, it's not so good. We're also dealing through COVID, where so many people have an extra year of eligibility that they were granted through the COVID period. They've been given an extra year, which finishes pretty soon. But I used to look at a kid and say, that's a sophomore, that's a junior, she's a freshman. And right now, you don't know what class people are because they've been here we have 6th-year kids now. We even had a 7th-year kid who played due to her eligibility, and she had had some injuries. But you're dealing with a grad transfer phenomenon, so kids are transferring more than they ever had. And I tell people it's not bad. It's the college experience used to be a 4-year linear experience. I go to college right after high school, and I go 8 semesters, and then I'm done. And right now what you're seeing is people are taking 5 to graduate, and they're getting a grad year. There's a gap year. There's study abroad. It's just different. It's a different kind of evolution than what we're used to. But we're seeing these grad transfers as well, which I frankly think is a good principle. We've lost some kids to go to places, and they've left. They finished their senior year of eligibility. They're done. They have 1 more year due to COVID. And what happens? Northwestern says, hey, we've got a spot on the basketball team, and you've got a chance to go to grad school at Northwestern, and the kid transfers. And I know that impacts our roster, and I know that impacts the coaches' recruiting to some degree and the plans, and I respect that. And I also think that there's a point where kid graduated from BU and is now going to get a grad degree from Northwestern. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be helping them along the way with their educational and academic pursuits. One of the things that does have a lot of impact if it comes to fruition, and it's in its infant stages right now, is student athlete employment. I'm not talking about students mopping a floor in the gym like I did when I was a student. That was my job at the gym. Also served as a goal judge at hockey games. That was a job that I had. I'm talking about something completely different. I'm talking about them actually being paid to be a student athlete. They're an employee. And you probably heard that at Dartmouth, the men's basketball team was seeking to become employees. They were seeking to unionize. They essentially voted. They were deemed by the local NLRB that they were in fact employees, and they then voted to unionize. I think the vote was 13-2. That they were employees. They weren't just students. That they should be paid for their endeavors. And one of the things that they talked about was that they didn't have control over their own existence as a basketball player. They didn't determine their departure times, and they didn't determine where they could eat on the road and so forth. So somebody else was telling them what to do. So somebody had agency over them. The NLRB somewhat agreed with them, and they did say that we, in fact, deem you to be employees. And I think that I mentioned the agency side of it because somewhere along the line, it's not about agency, it's about profit. And you feel that somebody's profiting from your existence and your playing. And I will say that schools are making, some schools are making some money, especially in football. Schools aren't making the money that people think they are when it comes to college athletics. And I won't get into budgets and subsidies and so forth, but just the general public perception is, wow, they must be making $100 million. And I can tell you that's not the case in a lot of different places. But there is public sentiment for them to be employees, and I think that that's something that does change the NCAA over the course of time. It changes amateurism. You're no longer just an athlete; you're an employee. That has a lot of logistical issues associated with it. Right now they turn the ball over 4 times in a basketball game on Saturday, and they sit next to the coach for the rest of the game. If they're an employee, they turn the ball over 4 times in a basketball game, and they get fired on Monday. That's obviously a little bit facetious, but that can happen if you're an employee. There are also the tax implications, and there's an implication on international students as well who are here under a different classification. Regardless, Dartmouth has appealed the ruling. This will probably take a couple of years to kind of wring itself out, and we'll see where it goes from there. But that will change the face of the NCAA. That'll change the face of the offerings of sports on a college campus, because not everybody's going to think that all their students should be employees, and you're just going to see a different slate of offerings. And then we go, as I said, to the light-hearted topic of sports wagering. It is everywhere. You turn on the Red Sox game, and it's FanDuel or DraftKings, and you can't help but notice just how I guess evident some of these gambling houses are and these gambling initiatives are. There was a poll that was taken, college students, about a year ago, and it surveyed 3,000 students, and I think the number was 58% of them said that they did bet, that they had placed a legal bet. And this is a $100 billion industry that's just going to continue to increase at some point. Again, we're talking legal betting. We're not talking illegal betting. We're talking this is totally legal. 6% of the students had mentioned that they lost $500 on a single day. That's a lot of money. And 41% indicated that they had bet on the team where they went to school. And I think that gets into some of the dangers that we all feel. But I've said to a few people, we shouldn't be surprised by this. This is everywhere. It's in everybody's faces. You can't watch something without seeing it. So why would you think that the 18 to 22-year-old is immune from that? I also personally think that one of the reasons that it's becoming such an epidemic is because, and I'm going to sound like the 97-year-old guy right here, but because when it's on your phone and you just hit a button and you bet that way and you don't really feel the transaction, you continue to do that. And these are conversations we've had in my own household. But I do think that this is a dangerous path that we're following. I know that the NCAA President Baker is really interested in the impacts of sports gambling. Although it's illegal in the state of Massachusetts, you can still find places that you can bet. And what we worry about is this is kind of a gateway to, financial ruin. Number one, our students are being harassed online when a game has been turned by a missed free throw. We've had cases at BU that a kid has missed a shot at the end of the game, and they have had social media posts against them, personal attacks against them. Why? Because they cost somebody money who would bet on the game. And I just think that that's really sad. You know, we're also concerned that somebody who's involved with the college campus has access to information. They know if their roommate's not playing in the game tomorrow, and that information can get out. And every single game that we have has a line on it at some level. So it's really become quite an epidemic, and I'm worried about that as we move forward. That's kind of a topic du jour, and we're not going to end on that as our topic. We're going to just quickly go. This year we're having a very similar year to what we had last year. A number of athletes have already been named as the Patriot League Scholar Athlete of the Year. Here's a top 25 poll, which it's a little blurry that you on your screen, but on mine has Oklahoma as the number one softball team in the country, and the number 23 softball team in the country is Boston University. I can assure you we do not spend the same amount of money on our softball program that Oklahoma does on theirs, and it's a pretty good return on the investment. I would really go on and talk about softball, but last time I did that, they lost the game 6 hours later, and they're playing at Colgate today, so I'm not going to wax poetically about them too much other than to say, if you're a softball fan, you should come out and watch our team because they're really, really, really good. Kayla Ronson is representative of, I think, our student athletes. Kayla was an All-American in softball, and that doesn't happen in the Northeast very much. Today, it's a really nice day. It's going to be 41 degrees. And that's what we play in most of the time. But Kayla's a really special individual who's having another great year. And then I close with Jake Ottinger, who you may, if you're a hockey fan, you probably have seen Jake. He plays for Dallas. He was with us as a goalie for 3 years, and he ended up signing. The things about Jake that are great are Jake is one of the top goalies in the NHL right now. He's a candidate for the Vezina Trophy for the top goalie. Jake also finished his degree after he left BU, and while he's playing in the NHL, he's finishing his degree, and I'm really proud that he did that, and that is indicative of a lot of our hockey kids. You may read in the paper, hey, this person left and he signed, and this person left and he signed, and we have conversations with every single one of them about finishing their degree. So it's real important to us that no matter how much money you make and no matter how much fame you're going to achieve, that you still remember why you came to BU, and that was to not only excel on the ice, but to finish that degree. And Jake, again, when you see him playing, you look at him next time and you'll see a BU grad. This is our department GPA, 3.38 for last semester or last year. And the graduation success rate, 95% of our kids are graduating. I won't get into the metric of that, but when we meet our new freshman class, we tell them that you will be part of the cohort group that will either improve this or meet it, but you won't bring it down because you're expected to graduate. And then finally, as we show our graduation celebration, we talk about a few guiding principles that we talk about with all of our students, all of our coaches. We even talk about this during the recruiting phase and during the recruiting phase when we're talking to prospective coaches, when we're talking to them about the potential of coming to BU. We talk about the who we are tenets, that we have 15 tenets, and we talk quickly that we embrace the institutional mission. We believe we should be part of the institution, not a separate entity. We're trying to win. That word is in there, and the word integrity is highlighted as well. We devote to being a part of the campus community by being part of the student body. We're not a pod. We're part of the fabric of the university. We believe that intercollegiate athletics, demanding and rigorous as it can be, should be fun. We tell our coaches sometimes, don't be afraid to have a little bit of fun. People play a sport. Why? They play it because they're good. They play it because their friends play it. They play it because their parents make them. They also play it because it's fun, and it shouldn't be anything but that at the college level, no matter how rigorous and demanding it can be. And then finally, we ask our kids at the end, would you do this all over again? That's what we want to hear. For everything you went through, all the experiences you had, the good and the bad, would you do it again if you had to choose it again? And to me, it's a telling response. And it is overwhelmingly, I would change this, I would tweak this, but yeah, I'd do it again. And I'm proud that I chose to go to BU. And that's something that we always talk about. Would you choose to be a Terrier again? I think that is the most telling wrap-up statement that we can offer. So I know I went through a lot of things quickly to give you an overview of BU. Hopefully, if you're an alum, that this has spurred you to maybe increase your donation. If you're just a fan, hopefully we'll see you on ComAv at one of our games. And at the same time, if you have questions about anything I went through or questions about the NCAA, I'd be happy to take those right now.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I have a question which you haven't even touched on.
Okay.
In this day and age, since October 7th, we've heard of so much problems in colleges for anti-Semitism and what have you. Is that affecting the athletics at all? Is anti-Semitism hit upon it? Is there a problem with it? I'd just be interested to know.
Certainly not immune to the ills of the world and the ongoings of the world, and we've had many conversations with our kids just to hear them, and we promote certainly an inclusive environment is one of the things that we talk about in our Who We Are statement. So we're well aware, and our students are well aware of the tragedies and again the world events. So I can't say it has not impacted us. It's certainly something that is it's top of mind, and it's impactful to all of us.
Thank you very much for coming and speaking with us. I'm a little bit ignorant. I was a scholarship student. Thank you, Dad. If I was a athletic director at Dartmouth, the way I think, and I had I had somebody who wanted to come into my university and play for me, and I had to pay them, and I had to deal with the union, I would say, I don't care whether you go to one class here. I'm picking you because you're a great player. We no longer care about scholarship. This is a union program. The union may say you can only play 20 minutes in a game. That's the next thing they may force on you. But I think that you have to be concerned, all of you in your universities, that eventually the fact that you have a school will become secondary. The sports program will almost be a business, not that you make a lot of money, but a separate business, because if they're treating as employees and in a union, you're going to take the best player, not the smartest players. And I want to know if you're discussing with your fellow professional athletic directors, are we headed to being a commercial grade, not the premium Celtics, but the farm team, but a business rather than does school matter anymore? That's my concern.
That's a good question. One of the things that I did was give you an overview of our department, and then I gave you some things that are happening nationally and with the landscape. And I'm careful not to impose my own or really even give my own opinion about some of the things, because sometimes it doesn't matter, number one, but sometimes my job is let's just present the facts, and my opinion here might not even matter. But I would say that you're not wrong at all when you say that if you're an employee, there's a point where you're probably part of a business, and that could be the road that is being followed. And that's not different than the kind of the trite throwaway, you turn the ball over 4 times, you're fired example that I gave. That's a business proposition. We don't operate that way with our employees, but certainly, the ideal of that student athlete changes, right? It definitely changes if you're being paid. The concept, the optic of it changes, and I think that that's what you're alluding to. And as much as I say that I'm not here to give all my opinions, I don't disagree with the way you frame that. And again, we're trying to pick good athletes now anyway, whatever they're. Yep, there's a combination with scholarship, but if you're an employee, it's just a different level. Period.
And I was thinking that employee athlete, if they get scholarship, if they get free room and board, that all becomes taxable income to them. I mean, just think of how the IRS would consider that employee athlete.
So one of the things
it's a mess.
Yeah, no, and you're again right. One of the things we did with our students is we just talked to them about these are the impacts. This is what it would mean. This is what you're seeing, what you're hearing, but this is probably the impact. And we're not swaying them one way or another. We're simply saying this is what it looks like, including the taxable income side.
Thank you for coming. Just a comment before my real question. When I was of college age, my wife went to BJU and I went to Syracuse. But in any event, is the NCAA prepared to take action for the first scandal that's going to occur out of this? Because you know it's going to happen.
Yeah, there's been some cases where the folks have been found to have already violated some rules, even though the rules are, the rules used to look like this and now they look like this. But I think that's coming. That's coming. And again, I go back to what I started with. It's change. It's change in the air, and it's a changing definition of amateurism. And I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that at the Olympic level too. It's no different than intercollegiate athletics.
Hi there. Thank you. When did you go to Wesleyan?
I graduated in '91.
Okay.
That's an open-ended question.
Anyway, my real question is, how did this unionization movement come about? What is the foundation? What are the roots? What was the beginning? I mean, I just shake my head in disbelief, but maybe there's something that I don't know that would make sense.
No, I think that you shaking your head in disbelief is representative of some people's opinion that you're students, you're not employees. I think, and I don't have the actual, the history of where this began. I think that there has been a groundswell of opinion for a long time that if the department is making money and the coach is making this much money, hey, maybe the student should make the money. And that's really where it began. I'd say it began as public opinion, and it began as kind of groundswell, kind of a groundswell movement that, well, you're making this money, how come I can't? And I haven't heard students say that to me directly, but I know it has existed elsewhere. And again, I want to be careful that we're not showing profits like some of these schools are. And again, that's only a handful that really are. But I don't know where exactly to pinpoint it, but it's derived from the fact that if the school's making this much money on football and I'm playing football, how come I am not sharing in that profit?
Good morning.
Morning.
By the way, thank you for mentioning that my wife didn't want to hear you. I have one observation that came about because of these questions, and one question that is completely unrelated to that. Maybe we can change the topic there. But I have this great fear that at some point the union is going to take advantage of the right to work law and insist that the athletes don't have to be students. After all, the right to work law says they don't have to join the union to get a job. Why should they have to go be a student to get a job, right? And at that point, college athletics just loses the word college.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the other question, completely unrelated, is I wonder if the NCAA's attitude and regulations is driven in part by the International Olympic Committee, which dramatically changed its rules for amateurism many years ago. And that could be what is driving the NCAA to change its rules as to who constitutes an amateur.
So I think the NCAA is driven by the courts as much as the International Olympic Committee, that the courts have said we couldn't put limits on certain things. You can't put limits on scholarship amounts, and you can't put, I won't get into every single thing, but they've essentially said you can't put limits on the student experience. And that's where I think the NCAA is I won't even say acquiescing, I'll just say adjusting. But I go back to, you know, your question or your point, which is a good one, which is not indifferent than the point about unions that was made before. I see that point. I think that what we're looking at in 50 years, I think college athletics looks completely different than it does now. And that's for better or for worse. I don't know if that means that schools are only sponsoring 2 sports and those students are employees and everything else is club. I don't know if that means that we have a few sports on each campus. I don't know what it means. I just think it looks different. I remind people that I like baseball, and I like baseball on the radio. And I like baseball on the radio because of when I grew up. Baseball on the radio is not as popular as it used to be. Neither is horse racing, neither is boxing. You know why? Because the landscape for sports has changed. And I think that's what we're seeing with the college landscape right now. It is changing. Whether it's evolving, it is evolving. It's just whether it's evolving positively or negatively, but it's going to look different in the near future, especially as college athletes are deemed as professionals, if that does happen. And the unionization definitely has effect, clearly.
I thank you for your talk. This is a sort of a personal question. I don't know what sports you have at BU, and I have a granddaughter who's coming up in May to look at BU, who's a swimmer. Do you have a swim team?
We do. We do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Something that occurred to me as you talked further is what is the impact expected to be on ticket pricing and everything else as students get compensated by the school in particular? I mean, obviously, if they're getting, for their likeness, that's not going to affect the tickets, I wouldn't imagine.
The ticket price for this group won't change. All you have to do is call me, and I'll make sure that you're taken care of when you no, again, these are concepts that you're throwing out that are we're not sitting around talking about ticket prices. As prices go up, as costs go up, obviously you have to make that up somewhere, and I could see that increasing. The price for a Division I football game is pretty expensive right now, and no, it's got to come from somewhere. So I think you're right. It's all related to changing landscape, and then what do we pallet as a consumer to pay for a pro game right now? We all remember going to Red Sox games that were a couple of bucks, right? $3 for the bleachers, and that was a long time ago. And I think you're seeing that at the college level too. And if this does happen, certainly there's ancillary impact everywhere on a budget, everywhere.
Anybody else?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.